What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and I'm joined, as ever, by Aidan McConaughey for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. No Cammy again this week due to some technical difficulties, but this being a Brooklyn Nets podcast, it's fitting that we thought that would be day to day is taking a little bit longer than expected. So we hope to have coming back soon. But we have lots and lots to discuss in the meantime. On this episode, we'll be recapping last week's games, talk about the debut of LaMarcus Aldridge and the Nets topping the Eastern Conference, and much, much more. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans, the pod itself on Twitter at BK2UK Pod, and check us out on YouTube where you can watch all of our episodes back. And with that out of the way, let's get into it with some. I think I said last week that I hope this is the week. I hope this is the week that the Nets finally slip into that first seed past those goddamn Sixers. And it was. How did you feel when seeing us at the top of the league?
It was great. I know it was nice that you spoke about it quite a bit at the end of the last pod, and it was finally the week where we managed to get in there. Clearly, I mean, obviously we've been joint with the Sixers a couple of times now, I think, but no, it was nice to see us kind of standing there on our own in the one seed. But I mean, I'm going to say it again, and I mean, significant or not in the long run, obviously the Nets are going to make the playoffs. We know that they're going to do well in the playoffs. We'll wait and see how well they do, but we're all pretty confident. But in terms of these milestones as Nets fans, I mean, I remember I went on my app after the game and I was absolutely buzzing seeing us sitting there like in the one seed. I mean, there's been plenty of times in the past season where probably you and me both, Matt, where we went on that app and we've tried to see how many games we're off kind of being off the bottom of the league. And, you know, it's just one of these things that you do need to kind of drink it in and enjoy the good times. And this is one of these moments where it's like, wow, we are really, really good. And you've just got to enjoy it. And I mean, in terms of obviously this week, it is fully deserved that like we've went first. I mean, the Sixers and the Bucks have both played really well this year as well. I mean, the Sixers have had their injury issues, but the way obviously the Nets have played, the way we've managed to find our rhythm so quickly, despite all the roadblocks that we've had. I mean, there was plenty of doubters when we first brought in Harden, having us down as being a car crash. And I mean, it's nothing short of remarkable that they've kind of came out and won so many games since that trade. And I think the Nets will hold on to the one seed for a while. I don't think they'll give it up without a fight. And it's really, really nice. What did you think when you saw it?
Yeah, exactly the same as you. It's a bit, I don't want to get too emotional or anything like that, but it is kind of a bit, it's that Paul Rudd meme, isn't it? It's just like, hey, look at us.
Yeah.
Look how far. It's like, look how far we've come. But no, it's really, really cool. Obviously, the date that's been doing the rounds is that this is the first time that the Nets have been in sole possession of the first seed in the Eastern Conference since 2003, when we also had a big three of Jason Kidd, Kenyon Martin, and Richard Jefferson, alongside some other Nets favorites. But in 2003, we reached the finals as well. Obviously, we didn't quite get over the hump in those finals, and I hope that's where the similarities end this season. But yeah, just like you say, we're going to get onto it a little bit later, but to have, you know, the best record in the East and to be winning so many of these games when we know as Nets fans that we've still got that extra gear and we've still got these players to come in is just crazy. But it's really, really good. And I think it's just when KD and Kyrie came, they said they're going to be building winning habits. And I think that's exactly what we've done. And yeah, it's just phenomenal. And I do not take it for granted at all. I hope everyone listening and everyone watching on YouTube is just, you know, taking a minute to be happy. So really, really pleased. Talking about things to be really, really pleased about. Shams reporting that Kevin Durant is closing in on a return to the floor, saying next week is likely. So he's had nearly 2 months off. What do you think? I saw it reported the other day that if this was the playoffs, he'd be playing. So what do you think about KD coming back slowly?
It's interesting. I mean, if I was to go back to what you said last week, Matt, when we were talking about Aldridge and the whole ramp up kind of thing, and we were kind of talking about, we went on to KD a wee bit and we said, I mean, he has to come back at least at the start of April to just get in that playoff mindset and play enough games so he can settle back in, because it's too big an adjustment just to kind of hold him out until the playoffs and go back in. And I think you were spot on. I think the start of April was the perfect time for him to come back in. And yeah, obviously Sham said that about him potentially playing in the playoffs right now if he was, if we were obviously in the playoffs. And it's almost like they left it as long as possible. It's like they left it as long as they could. And obviously there's a risk of kind of reoccurring injury with a hamstring, but I don't even think it's just that. They're reducing the risk of any injury whatsoever, because he could come back, and you know what it's like. You can have an injury lingering and you can get injured again. It's just your body sometimes, if it's not all there, you can just get any type of injury. It doesn't matter what it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see KD back on the floor. I mean, it's hard not to be. I mean, I think despite Harden putting up a really good argument recently, I'd still say Kevin Durant's definitely the next best player, and you always kind of want to see them back in the court. It's one of those things, though, I don't know about you, where because we're in that position where we don't actually need KD back to still be winning games. I mean, I'm going back to previous years, like when we had injuries with D'Angelo Russell and Karis LeVert, and it did feel like the world was like collapsing in us at those times, and we were just losing constantly. But because we've got that star power insurance in there, where we've got Kyrie, Harden, I mean, even now you think that you've got guys like Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, Joe Harris, who can take over games themselves as well. It's almost like the Nets have kept him out as well because we've got that star power there. And I think you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, where it's like he could have been back by now, but it's almost like because we're winning, they're like, all right, okay, maybe we should just keep him out for a wee bit longer. And I definitely think that's played a part in it as well, because we're playing winning basketball at the moment. Why not keep him out for as long as possible and wrap him in cotton wool for the playoffs and then bring him back in with a few weeks to go? But yeah, it's crazy. I just think I can't believe how well we're playing, and we get to bring Kevin Durant back into this. It's almost like I don't know how good we can actually be at the moment, and yeah, I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. Our ceiling is, you can't see it. It's not. It doesn't exist. You know, we have the potential to be a historically good team with all those three playing. Like if we keep playing the way we are, and KD comes back the way he was playing before he went injured. Bear in mind, he was averaging 29 points a game in those 19 or so games he's played. So it's just bananas. But yeah, like you were saying. He's been out for a good long while, and of the games he's not played, the Nets are 20-2, which
madness. Thing is, I'm not even surprised, because we've been coming and doing these podcasts and talking about the games. You can barely name the losses. You know, there's you can name the losses because we've won that many games, and yeah, it's just mad.
It is crazy. So, like you say, it's borderline. I don't want to say it's unfair that we're adding Kevin Durant, because we've been slagged off for not being fair after bringing LaMarcus Aldridge, but it's an incredibly exciting time. I think it is good though that he is coming back. I think not just because we're itching to see him, but as you say, we've wanting to. I think there's talking about ramping up. There's a certain level of ramping up you need to do to get reps on the floor as well. I think so to have that ramp up going into the playoffs and us not becoming the Clippers of last year is hugely important. And to do that, hopefully against the Knicks and come back as scary hours taking on the noisy neighbors and absolutely torching them would be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, we shall see. But you know, talking about fitting into this starting lineup, there's someone knocking on the door to be a starting centre, and that is someone who Steve Nash has called the Nets' best defender in Nic Claxton. I believe you've done a little bit of digging on Nic Claxton and his shout to be the starting centre.
Yeah, I mean, I found that post-game press are so interesting. And Steve Nash's comments about Nic Claxton, vague at times. I mean, it was almost like he knows how good Nic Claxton is, but he doesn't want to say it too much just because there's then pressure on the Nets to kind of expand his role, and they're obviously trying to be really, really cautious with this guy. It's been that way since the beginning. But I mean, I think he is the best defender. I was trying to think, and obviously we've got guys like Bruce Brown, Kevin Durant, and even Kyrie's lifted his game defensively this year. And we are looking much better than people think defensively. But I mentioned last week, the rise in that has came since Nic Claxton has came into the lineup. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I was watching some of his defensive possession. Someone put a compilation together on Twitter. I'll need to find it and send it over actually. But basically, I thought for the first couple, it almost looked like he was lucky when he was getting switched on guards. It's like he was just lucky with the way the possession folded out, that people were in the place at the right time. But it's never stopped. I mean, you can barely count. You could probably count on one hand where a guard's got past him when he's been switched on him, and it is an elite skill for a guy of that size to be able to match up with someone like that. And I mean, one question which I really, really liked, and a shout out to Christian Winfield, who is my favourite Nets beat writer. He always asks the questions that the fans want to know the answer to. And there was a great question from Christian, where he basically just asked him. He said, "Look, Steve, you've obviously said that Nic's the best defender, and we've obviously been struggling at the start of the first and the start and third. Obviously, no questions on who's been on the court during those times at centre. Why is he not starting?" And Nash did give him a really vague answer, and but obviously it was nice to hear that he was complimentary of Nic. And it is understandable to a certain extent that they want to settle him in, as he's obviously still really young. But yeah, I could see Nic starting. I mean, he is great, and I think you can obviously look on. You don't even need to look at the stats to see that we are better when he is on the court. But there is kind of plenty of stats that you could probably dig into, and it would back it up. But obviously, I did like what I saw from LaMarcus Aldridge starting at the 5 the other night. We'll obviously get on to talk about that later. But I do think Nic's probably best in the court when he's with Blake Griffin. I don't know if you've kind of seen that times in the court when he is with Blake, where there is really a 1-2 punch in that 4 and 5 positions. So it's not a bad thing at all, obviously, if we've got him coming off the bench. But can he be playing that well and not be in the starting lineup much longer? He's probably going to start asking the question himself. He's really confident when he gets asked questions and thinks he's the best defender on the team. So why not? I mean, I'd certainly like to see him starting, but if we've got that quality of player coming off the bench, you can't complain either, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I've said before that I love his confidence. There's been a couple of really good sound bites of him, like when we saying that we traded away all our depth, and Nic and Claxton was just like, "Oh, I'm here," so just fully a massive fan of himself. But I think a player of his caliber, and like where obviously he's a second-year player, but his rookie season kind of got taken away from him anyway. He was a second-round pick. So he's absolutely playing above his potential, like above what you normally get, I think. But I think what might help him is that he must understand that, like, he's joined a team that had KD and Kyrie already, I think. So to expect to start for that team that has championship aspirations coming in the league just so recently, he must know that, like, if he was playing for, I was going to say Cleveland, but not Cleveland because they've got another pretty good young center. But if he was playing for some dross team, if he was playing for, I don't know, name a bad team, Houston or
Houston or something like that,
or something, like, he'd be like, I should be starting. But because we've got all this star power and because we've got the aspirations that we have, I think that must be okay. Cool. I'll just chill. But yeah, I'm very, very happy with how he's playing. Obviously, I would love to see him in starting. I'd love to see more. I just want to see more Nic Claxton minutes, really. But talking about Timberwolves, we're going to get round to the last week of games. So we're recording on a Saturday evening. Sorry. So we're not. You might listen to this just after the Bulls game. But we're going to start with a win on Monday against the Timberwolves. So the Nets took the win 107-112. And we had a return in Kyrie Irving back into the fold. What did you make of the Timberwolves game?
Surprise, surprise. I mean, Kyrie comes back in after a week off and he looks like he hasn't missed a day. I don't think there's another player in the NBA who can come off after kind of any time off and have zero rust whatsoever. But he literally looks like he was playing an hour before that, and he was just amazing. 27, 3 and 7 in this one in 33 minutes. He was just absolutely electric in the first quarter. I think he scored 15 points on 6 of 7 for the first within like I think it was the first 6 minutes or something like that. But yeah, I don't know if you remember that. I think it was when he came back a couple of seasons ago. I think it was last season against Chicago, and he done the exact same thing. He just came in, he was just lights out straight away. It's such a skill. I can't believe it. I mean, every other player that we have seems to take a bit of time to come back into it. But yeah, he was just amazing again. And it wasn't just offensively. I think defensively as well, he was really impressive. And see, when Kyrie puts in the extra effort on defensive possessions, it seems to be contagious, and other players around him seem to kind of catch on and put in that extra effort too. So yeah, it's great to see when he is back on the court that we can raise our game on certain possessions. But I mean, we didn't play well in this one, and it was just to have him back in when we probably would have lost this game otherwise, I think. And I think there was obviously plenty of critics of Kyrie during the week off. I mean, there was stuff coming out obviously about him potentially having a child, and there were still people moaning after that news came out, and it's always going to happen, but he always shuts them up with a stellar performance after that. So we can't really complain. I mean, obviously I mentioned we didn't really play well in this one. It was another one obviously where a big went off in Brooklyn, Karl Anthony Towns. It was his turn this time. He got 31 and 12. I don't know about you, but I've just kind of decided that it's going to happen now. And it's probably too late for us to bring in someone that's going to match up to these bigs. And it's just one of these things where we're going to have to put up with them getting 30 plus points if they're a above average centre. And we just need to beat them in all other aspects of the game, which we somehow did in this one. A bit of a poor performance, but no, it was nice to get the win in this one when it was pretty bleak at times.
Yes, I think Steve Nash, even after the game, and he had a post game press conference, and he had a little bit of gravel in his voice, like he'd been like there'd been some raised voices after that game, and it's the first time I've seen, because obviously Steve Nash, a brand new head coach, so you don't really know what his temperament's like. He's not going to be one of these guys. Could he be one of these guys that flips tables and throws sneakers halfway through the locker room? Is he this kind of Phil Jackson Zen master thing? But it felt like he was annoyed at the end of that one. He's just saying we need to be better. I mean, we'll come on to it a little later because we've got a listener question around this sort of area, but we're still letting these poorer teams stay around in these games. And yeah, with Steve Nash looking so annoyed, it kind of drives home those high standards of what you want from a coach. Like you say, despite the win, despite Kyrie going off, it's still just we shouldn't have allowed it to be that close. And Nash sort of said something which I thought was really, really good, where he said, we're playing for something bigger than regular season wins. So it's just like, cool, we won.
That's standards, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. And that's why I think it's so good to have someone like Steve Nash, who has been orchestrating teams his entire career, building this team up. And I think, more has to be said for his coaching ability, really, because we went on to it. But annoyingly, like, it didn't really translate into the next game with the Rockets. So although it was another win, 120-108. So we didn't give them it was a bit more of a convincing win, sorry. But yeah, still a poor start, but we'll get onto that in a little bit. What did you take from the Rockets game?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Obviously, we had such a poor start, but we still managed to find a way to win. The Discord was really funny that night. Obviously, if you are a UK Nets fan and you want to get involved in the stuff that goes on the Discord, give Matt a message, because it is really fun to be a part of. But we were laughing because one of the boys, Elliot, mentioned about Joe Harris and how he never seems to get criticism from anyone when he's playing poorly, and he has been playing poorly. But I mean, Joey Buckets was well and truly back in this one, and he was playing like a top 50 player in the NBA, which you'll understand if you watched Matt in the Miami Heat's top 50 drunken draft last night. But yeah, he was excellent. I mean, 10 of 17 from the field, 7 from 12 from 3, 28 points altogether. And I think Joe probably needed this one as much as the Nets, because it is fair to say that he's not been playing his best recently. And even in this one, he started slowly, but he really came into his game in the second half and was absolutely excellent. And yeah, I said that obviously Joe needed this one, but the Nets needed this one. Obviously, James Harden went down with a tight hamstring. I think the entire Nets Twitter just gasped at that moment because there was a lot of fear. I mean, you don't need to mention hamstrings in Brooklyn because we all know that that's not a good mix at all. But we pulled together in the fourth and we got the win despite James not being on the court. And yeah, I think Steve Nash talked after the game and he said that it was purely precautionary, and all the stuff that's came out after kind of makes us think that it was just one of these things where they didn't want to take the risk, and it's totally understandable. We can't take risks at this time in the season, but yeah, it was great again for the role players stepping up and winning the fourth, and it did give me a lot of confidence that we can go into these games without your Hardens, your Kyries, and your KDs, and we still have that power there to go out and close out games in the fourth. So yeah, it was nice to get the win in this one, especially when we started so poorly.
Yeah, I think with Harden playing so many minutes this season, I think that just multiplied the fear that he's done his hamstring in. But unfortunately, yeah, like you say, it doesn't look to be anything too serious. I mean, giving up 42 points in the first quarter to a Rockets team that have had a 20-game losing streak this season, it's just inexcusable, I think. I mean, following on talking about Cat having a blinder against us, 12 points by Daniel House in the first quarter. Like, we can say all we want about elite big men doing what they want, but Daniel House, it's crazy. Our offense was quite consistent through the game, I thought, but it's our defensive intensity kind of ramped up sort of as the game went on. And the Rockets kind of weren't getting as much. But like you say, it was just nice to see us sticking around and grinding out an ugly win. And that's what it was. It was if there is such a thing as a bad win, this week's had a couple of bad wins. But yeah, again, nice to see us pull it out, and nice to see Kenyon Martin's son playing for Houston, which is crazy. So
it looks good. Looks really good.
Yeah, I was hoping he'd be included in the James Harden deal somehow. But yeah, in the same week where we got back to the top of the East, when his dad played for the Nets, we played against him, which I thought was quite a nice little wrinkle. But yeah, hopefully he's gets to be as good as his dad. But it was a bit more like it the following night, so back to back, and this was LaMarcus Aldridge's debut, and we will get on to LA, but before we get on to the new arrivals, I thought we'd take a minute to talk about Jeff Green and Landry Shamet, who had a pretty good game themselves, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're quick to talk about the stars when they have a big game, but you've got to shout out the role players when they put in the graft, and yeah, it was working for everyone, but in particular, I was really impressed with Uncle Jeff and Landry Shamet. I mean, all eyes were on Kyrie for this one, obviously being the only member of the big three that was there, but it was the other guys that stepped up, and especially offensively to get us the win. First of all, obviously, Uncle Jeff, another one who, like Joe Harris, has struggled at times recently, especially since he had that shoulder injury, which seemed to be another niggling one that kept him out for a wee bit. But he was so good. I mean, 21 points again. his 3-point shooting is just sublime. I can't believe how good he is for his age, but he just always seems to be in the right position, and he's so consistent, and he is a real luxury to have, especially on that vet minimum contract. But as well as Shamet, I was about to say Shamet, Tyler Johnson, you have to shout him out as well. He had a really good game in this one. But Landry Shamet, obviously this was his first game back since he was out with an injury for a bit. And he looked like he didn't miss a minute as well, like Kyrie in one of the previous ones. He got straight back into his 3-point shooting form. He was 5 of 7 from 3, and yeah, he was shooting lights out. Tyler Johnson was the same actually. He was 5 of 7 from 3, but it's the competition for playoff places, man. It's getting even harder each game for Steve Nash. They just seem to be coming out, and they look like they're playing hard and trying to put up their arguments for these slots in the playoff rotation, which could be 8 or 9 guys, and there's not going to be a place for everyone. But yeah, better Steve Nash than me deciding who can be in, because I'd take any of them at the moment.
Yeah, it really is like, as you look down this team, there are probably only 2 players that I wouldn't want to see any minutes at the moment, and that's DeAndre Jordan and TLC, unfortunately, at the moment. So, I mean, even my boy Chris Chioza, I think, gets a pass from me anyway, just because I love the guy. But we're just such a deep team, and like you say, it's not going to be a 13-man rotation come the playoffs. So there's going to be 4 people that miss out on those minutes, and yeah, like you say, it's just impossible to call at the moment, really. And yeah, it's a lovely problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. Yeah, Kyrie, just going back to the Houston game, had 12 assists, and like you say, everyone was kind of gunning for him in this game. And yeah, to come out with, and he had another 8 assists in the game against the Hornets. But yeah, really, really good. But all eyes were on Kyrie, but all eyes were also on our new starting center. How did you think LaMarcus went?
I thought he was excellent. I mean, did we really expect Sean Marks to bring in Aldridge if he was going to be washed? I mean, don't be silly. That man knows what he's doing. But obviously the big talking point before this one, that was the fact that he went straight into the starting lineup, which took quite a lot of people by surprise. Personally, I've got a lot of faith in what Woj tweets, and I feel like I saw this one coming, and he certainly was told something when he obviously mentioned that he was going to get serious minutes at the centre position. But in terms of what he brought in the court, I was really impressed with how quickly he settled in. I thought defensively, the Nets were obviously much better when he was on the court. Offensively, his first basket was a 3, which was great, because I don't think we've had a good shooting 5-man since Brook Lopez's last season. So, but yeah, he was also just really good kind of passing wise, and passing out to the 3-point line. He was freeing up loads of guys and made some really nice passes to 3-point shooters, and the bench were absolutely loving it when he passed it to Tyler Johnson that first time, and he nailed the 3 ball. But I mean, he finished 11, 9, and 6. He also had 2 steals and a block, which is lovely numbers for a debut. And he had 29 minutes, which I really didn't expect from the ramp-up brigade, because I thought he was going to be like 15 minutes maximum, obviously, with being out for a bit. But yeah, he looked great, and I think we mentioned it last week. It just gives us something else, and it's a different option. And maybe one night we need to go bigger and kind of be more defensive at the 5 spot, and we've got those options. But maybe there's sometimes we can expose teams in the playoffs with a 3-point shooting 3, and Aldridge is that guy. So yeah, really excited and really impressed.
Yeah, exactly. I think whenever we bring someone in, it was the same with Blake, and it was the same with LaMarcus Aldridge, where it's like, well, this doesn't fill your rim protection needs. And it's just like, well, it doesn't. That's true. But it does give us another thing we can do well. Like you say, so we've got that 5 that can space the floor now, which we haven't had in ages. And, you know, he's not lights out, but he's someone you need to respect on the 3-point line. And that just opens the paint up even more for everybody else that we've got. For a cut in Joe Harris, or for something like that. But yeah, he looked really, really good. He loves the mid-range as well, which I think is funny. It's almost like the middies coming back into fashion a little bit. Especially, obviously, Kyrie's got that sort of elbow jumper and all that kind of good stuff. So that was interesting. Just like you say, it's just everything you wanted from a debut, really. Or sort of pleasantly surprised, more than you'd expect from LaMarcus Aldridge. And yeah, we'll see what his position will be going forward into the playoffs. But it is something that everybody noticed was LaMarcus Aldridge going straight in at the starting center, but that didn't mean that DeAndre Jordan was bumped to the bench. He got a DNP, and I went back, and he wasn't on the injury report, so they weren't feigning rest or anything like that. This wasn't injury management or whatever they're calling it. It was a coach's decision. And what I think is interesting, and this is something that they spoke about on the Glue Guys podcast, is that DJ not being in the starting five cost Kenny Atkinson his job. And now it seems he's not even in the squad. So I really want to know what, if anything, has been said to DJ about Aldridge coming in, because he is absolutely a DJ replacement. Like, there's no way around it. He's there. If DJ was playing well, I don't think LaMarcus Aldridge would be on this team. We would have got a wing defender or something else. But I mean, it's unlikely he'll get DNP'd a lot, but maybe it was just a way to get Aldridge some early reps. But it remains to be seen. We did get absolutely torched in the first quarter of the previous game, so I've got a feeling that the team were out to make a statement. And yeah, they only gave up 11 first quarter points to this Hornets team. But it can't hurt that DJ wasn't there. It can't be a coincidence, I think, but he's been a net negative for some time. The Hornets went 4 for 23 in that first quarter, which is, it would be mean of us to put that all down on the lack of DJ, but it's it's a real thing. It's going to be really, really interesting to see sort of DeAndre try and save face, because we've seen James Harden get in his face. We know he's boys with KD and Kyrie. They took pay cuts to get him here. So yeah, what do you think of DNP Andre?
It feels like it's been coming for a while, and I think it could be going forward that he isn't going to play. I mean, he was obviously wearing a tracksuit the other night, and he didn't take it off at any point. He barely even warmed up from what I saw, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, he did look annoyed, and you can understand, but let's face it, let's go back to when Jarrett Allen was in this team. Jarrett Allen took the starting spot off him at some point, kind of going into the last few weeks before he was obviously trading the Harden deal. So they didn't really have much choice but to play DJ after that, because they only had Reggie Perry and an injured Nic Claxton at that time. So I think Nash has probably been looking for an excuse for a long time to get him out that starting lineup, and it just hasn't been there yet. I mean, they obviously want to take Nic Claxton, take that slowly, so they felt it wasn't right to put him straight in there. But let's face it, Nic Claxton's been playing DeAndre Jordan off the court for a long time as well. And yeah, I think as soon as Aldridge came in, it sounded like that was always going to be the plan. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've always said that DeAndre Jordan's in such a good situation where he's getting paid a good amount of money for the type of production that he brings. He gets to live in New York. He's with his pals. But is he happy in that situation? Is he happy not going to be playing? I mean, is he going to be this guy where he's just going to be there and be a bench guy, which is a really expensive guy just to be sitting on the bench and not being playing any minutes? But yeah, it is interesting. There is going to be nights where DeAndre Jordan could be a good option, but is he happy with that, only playing the odd game? It's a really tough question, but I think personally we looked so much better in the court with Aldridge, and it just gave so many options. And I don't know if you noticed, but obviously on the bench, everyone was going crazy when he was doing stuff. He was just sitting in the back there, kind of giving a polite applause. It was awkward, and I don't think they'll want a guy like that around for too much longer if he's going to be unhappy. So maybe a trade request at some point, who knows? But it would be really interesting to see what that conversation was with Nash and DJ, because I can imagine he wasn't happy, because he clearly wasn't happy when Jarrett Allen was starting over him last season, as you mentioned about Kenny Atkinson. He was definitely one of the guys that was unhappy with Kenny, and because he was obviously straight in the team straight after that. So Yeah, we'll wait and see, but you can't be happy, but you've got to think KD and Carey must have given the okay for this to happen, or else I don't think Aldridge would have been starting the other night.
Yeah, that's I think that's why I touched up on. I just want to hear these conversations, because I assume that KD and Kyrie would have DJ's back and be like, look, we needs to start. He's great, you know, blah blah blah. Remember Lob City, all that kind of stuff. But it's just like, you can't argue with the way he's been playing, and there's better people in front of him that should be getting minutes. And I think it's just one of them where Kyrie and KD have probably just gone, it's time, fella. But yeah, it's as long as I don't think it will cause drama or anything like that. I think with maybe it's a bit more brutal because we're trying to build this championship mindset and stuff, and it's we're here to win, and you're not helping us win. And I love you to death, Deandre, but sorry, but you're not in this team. So something to keep an eye on. It's not all rosy in Netsland, even though we're top of the East and we're probably headed to the Eastern Conference finals ahead. But we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. That's all this week's games. Obviously, as I say, we're recording this on a Saturday evening, so we are taking on the Bulls on Sunday. But before we look ahead to that game and next week, we have got a listener question from Sam in our Discord server. He says, is there any concern around the fact that we're not really blowing teams out that often? We've had a lot of games, particularly since the All-Star break, where we pull clear only to let the opposing team back in again. What do you think causes this? And is it simply a matter of us doing what we need to do in the regular season? Or do you think there's a cause for concern? I had, in short, to answer Sam's question, yes, I am concerned. But from that press conference that I saw with Steve Nash, I think Nash is too. So, and it's obviously something that just goes back to the line where he said is we're playing for something more than regular season wins. So I don't think it's the case where you have these teams that kind of somewhat cruise through this regular season and then wait to turn it on. I don't think that's the case for this team. It's really frustrating, but unfortunately, we're just not a great defensive team. And everyone wants to beat us. It's we've got target on our back. This is playing the Nets is everyone's cup final. Everyone wants to scout the best team in the league, So this is kept happening, really. I hate to bring everything back to KD, but I think he is also one of our best defenders. And when he's back, I'm trying to think sort of player by player, but when he's back and he's obviously going to be getting a load more shots, are there going to be players that don't really have to worry about that end of the floor anymore, so their defensive sort of capabilities will go up? You got to think that maybe Jeff Green will maybe concentrate all on defense and that kind of stuff, maybe a bit of Blake Griffin. But yeah, we'll see about that. I just don't think I am worried about it. What about you?
I'm not overly concerned. I mean, I think you're spot on with your reasons why it is. I think you could probably go back to every game where that's happened, and it's one of these reasons. Obviously, the first one being teams definitely raised their game against the Nets. I think you were spot on there. It's almost like a nothing to lose type of attitude where you're playing against the best team in the league. Why not have a go at it? The Nets done it a couple of years back. We used to always have goes at teams because what is there to lose? We don't need to. We're probably going to lose this one, but we might as well give it a good go. It is that type of attitude. And it's usually the lower seeded teams where we struggle, because we've seen us blow out teams like Utah, the Clippers, Lakers this season, where they don't have that attitude. It's either that, let's face it, the Nets have been guilty of taking their feet off the gas when they're miles ahead. It's not just us. There's loads of teams that do that. It's not even like a lack of attitude. It just happens. It's just like, it's a mindset where you're so far ahead, you can't not take the foot off the gas and think, I don't need to be putting in the amount of effort I was 10 minutes or so or something like that, 10 minutes ago or something like that. And then, the final reason being, we are still trying to work out rotations with injuries. And despite the fact we've done so well at settling players in, bringing them in, and obviously new players, and settling rotations when guys are out, it has had an impact on it. And we've seen it when we've had bench minutes where we've just crumbled and there's no offense whatsoever, giving guys like TLC minutes, which, let's face it, wouldn't be happening if we were fully healthy. But you do see at times when guys like him come in the court, when he's not maybe played too much, that the Nets just can't find rhythm. And that tends to be the times when the teams come back into it. I mean, yeah, I'm not overly concerned for those reasons. And I know we've been saying it for a while. I remember saying it just a couple of months in, that there's still time to figure these things out. And there is still time. And I think that when we are fully healthy, fingers crossed, we'll see everyone playing, barring Spencer. We should be absolutely fine. And I don't know about you, but I'm still in that attitude at the moment where as long as we're winning games, I'm happy. All I'm seeing is that win. I'm not seeing the score. I'm still not looking at the score. I'm just seeing the win. And I think that's just the attitude of being a Nets fan, because we're just not used to it. I think maybe in the next couple of years when we are maybe used to winning and being a winning team consistently, we can maybe then have a look at ways we've won games and ways we can maybe win them better. But at the moment, as long as we're getting the win, I'm not bothered. And we are still beating the good teams. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned at the moment because we're still winning games, and I think that's the thing. It is a good distraction when you're winning games to take it away from the negatives, but they are there and they're there for everyone to see, and they're definitely trying to figure them out behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think one thing to say, like, you're absolutely right. It's like we are winning, so it's not, it's not the worst thing in the world to have to worry about. And I think you do definitely learn more from the close wins than you do. You're not going to learn much if you blow out every team by 30 points. Do you know what I mean? So, there's you win and you learn. So that's, it's a nice problem to have. But we're going to look ahead to next week now. We've got 4 games on the slate. We've got Sunday at Chicago. Then it's the Battle of the Boroughs Part 2 as the Nets take on the Knicks. So that's the day after the Bulls game. On Wednesday, we go up against the Pelicans, and on Saturday, we go up against the Lakers. How do you see this very exciting week, actually, when you read it all out? How do you see it going?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun week. It's probably one of the best ones we've had, actually. And I'm not going to say it because I've said it the last 3 weeks, but is this the week where we see scary hours? I mean, I've just said it there. I said I wouldn't, but it looks likely. So that's going to be exciting. Doesn't matter who we're playing. If we can get those 3 guys in the court, I think it's must watch. But yeah, Bulls and Knicks back to back will be a really fun couple of days, especially for us UK Nets fans. 7 o'clock tip off on Sunday. Can't wait for that. It's going to be great. Obviously, they've just brought in Nets killer Nikola Vucevic, which will be an interesting one to see how we handle him. But yeah, I don't see too many issues in that one. They seem to still be figuring it out. And obviously the next game, if it's anything like the last time, it's going to be an absolute cracker. I think if we're fully healthy, which potentially could happen, and I know they're not fully healthy with Mitch Robinson going down injured, but it's going to be a good one regardless. And they're going to be all out to try and upset after the way the last one ended. So bring that one on. I think it'll be brilliant. I think the toughest game of the week will be on Wednesday against the Pelicans. I think they're a really good team, a really young team, and Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson are 2 players that I really like. I think they're 2 really exciting players, and they've got a bright future together if they stay together. But yeah, I expect to win in that one, but I think it'll be close. Before I was kind of doing my notes for today, I think the Lakers, I was wanting to see if there was any chance of AD or LeBron coming back. It looks like LeBron's not going to be back for this one, but Anthony Davis potentially could be back. So excited to see him. We obviously didn't see him the last time. It was just LeBron that played against us, and we're still wanting to see how we handle these guys going into the playoffs, because we could very well be facing the Lakers. So yeah, I think the Nets are going to win that regardless. I think if AD plays or not, I think we will definitely have the firepower to beat them. So yeah, that gives it 4-0 again, and fingers crossed we keep that 1 seed. But yeah, I think you're right. These games can be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I'm not sure it makes for a good podcast when I agree with everything you say, but it's one of those. I think Sunday at the Bulls is going to be great. You make a good point with Vooch. He's hurt. He's hurt our feelings before, but I still think we'll take the win in that one. Monday at the Knicks is obviously what's circled in the calendar, and I think I think if the Nets win this game, which I think is the last time we play the Knicks this season, then we tie all time for Nets games and Knicks games. So, from the New Jersey days, Brooklyn days, all games, we're going to be level. It would be everyone will have like 103 wins each or something like that. So next season, mark my words, when we continue to beat on the Knicks, we will officially be New York's team. And there's nothing anyone can say about that because we can just say, look at the results. So that'll be a fun one. I think you're right about the Pelicans. Got a lot of love for Ingram and Zion too. Obviously, they did get rid of JJ Redick, who wanted to come to Brooklyn, which I think he's being a bit of a crybaby about. But I think we covered that last pod. And yeah, against the Lakers, we just got to keep an eye on Kyle Kuzma, who seems to be doing all right actually in LeBron and AD's absence. But I don't still think he's, especially if KD, James Harden, and Kyrie are back, then he's not anything to be worrying about. And yeah, I'm going to go 4-0 as well. But yeah, it is. Yeah, like you say, it's a 7 p.m. tip for the Bulls game. Happy Easter Sunday. The Nets went 11-2 in the month of March. So as April rolls on, I'm hoping for a lot more of the same. But that's all we got time for today. That is it. Thanks to everyone for listening and for watching along on YouTube. We'll see you next time.